My House of Horrors Chapter 661–670. The red spectre from Xiaobu's neighbor was much more powerful than Chen Ge had expected. Actually, that had something to do with him. After interacting with ghosts that were weaker than red specters, he had forgotten the horror of being dominated by a red spectre. The extreme red represented danger and danger. The moment the female ghost appeared, the survival instinct that was branded into Chen Ge's bones was triggered. Before the homicidal maniac could react, he had already dashed far away. When Xiao Bu pushed open the door, she should have been a normal child, so how did she survive behind the door? Murderers, ghosts, and gray-skinned monsters, in this nightmarish town, even the adults had no chance of survival, but a little girl had survived. That was unbelievable to Chen Ge. Dragging the hammer, Chen Ge ran like his life depended on it. He did not dare turn his head back. He could only hear the knocking coming from behind him and the sound of flowing water. He knew that the red spectre was right behind him. The few passengers were originally standing in the middle of the residential area. They looked at the small town that was covered in blood fog, and their bodies were squeezed together. They were afraid that they would be dragged into the fog in the blink of an eye. After leaving Chen Ge, it was as if they had lost their support, and there was no sense of security at all. Run! Chen Ge's voice came out from the residential area. This was the first time that the passengers had heard Chen Ge scream at the top of his lungs. In their memory, no matter what happened to the man, he would be calm and collected like he would never feel fear. Reality proved that they were wrong. It was not that the man did not feel fear, but he had not run into anything that was truly scary. After the passengers heard Chen Ge's voice, they slowly turned to look at Chen Ge. Carrying the travel bag and backpack in his left hand, dragging a scary-looking hammer in his right hand, and his shoulder being gripped tightly by an angry white cat, Chen Ge's expression was twisted. He opened his legs and sprinted toward them. Run to the left. To the restaurant. The restaurant. Quote. At first, they didn't understand why Chen Ge would lose his composure like this. After a few tenths of a second, they looked past Chen Ge and looked behind Chen Ge. A headless female corpse walked out of the pitch-black corridor. Countless blood vessels were scattered around her neck, interweaving into a large red net, and at the end of the net was a horrifying and evil human head. F***CK. What did you provoke? Run. The presence of a red spectre was far stronger than that of a normal ghost. When the few passengers saw the female ghost, they reacted the same way as Chen Ge and ran away. They almost didn't dare to imagine what would happen if they were caught. Their minds were blank, and there was only one thought left in their minds: run. Run. The female ghost's speed was much faster than in the game. Chen Ge ran as fast as he could, but the distance between them was still closing. Thankfully, I sent a murderer to go in and test the door. If I went to guard the door myself, I wouldn't have those few seconds to react, and I would have been dragged into the room already. Without disturbing Zhang Ya, on Chen Ge's side, only Xu Yin could hold off the headless woman for a while. After I complete the trial mission in Liwan City, no matter what, I have to help Xu Yin find his heart. Running at full speed, the scenario from Xiaobu's game reappeared. On the street that was covered in blood fog, the few people screamed as they tried to escape toward the end of the street. I can't run anymore. I can't run anymore. The drunkard held his chest. It feels like my heart is going to jump out of my chest. Quote. If you stop, that guy will dig out your heart with his own 2 hands. Don't stop. Chen Ge screamed. Perhaps his encouragement worked, because the drunkard gritted his teeth and continued to run. I finally understand why you told us to wait for you at the entrance of the residential area. If you had said something earlier, we would have waited for you at the hotel. Scissors screamed. Even the cruelest murderer would wet his pants when he saw a red spectre, much less a fake one like him. Toward Scissors, Chen Ge had a good attitude. He planned to train Scissors as his own employee. Don't worry, it's not a big problem. As long as you run fast enough, the ghost might not be able to catch up to you. Listen to me. You'll be safe once you reach the hotel. Quote. When encountering a supernatural event, one could not allow oneself to be trapped inside a narrow building. As long as one could run, there was still hope. This was the conclusion that Chen Ge had come to after experiencing so many supernatural events. Since they were already being chased by the ghost, it was too late to say anything now. All they could do was lower their heads and run. The blood fog shrouded the street, and strange noises came from the buildings on both sides. It felt like something might reach out from the half-open windows at any moment. Stay in the middle of the road. Do not get too close to the buildings on both sides. Quote. Chen Ge could still remember the scenario in Xiao Bu's game. Liwan City was filled with danger at night. The monsters and ghosts hiding inside the buildings would use the darkness to ambush the passing lambs. Most of the monsters and ghosts inside the buildings will not leave their rooms, but it's different for a red specter. Chen Ge turned his head slightly to look behind him. He had no idea how he had managed to provoke the ghost for the latter to chase after him relentlessly. Looks like even in Liwan City, a red specter is definitely at the top of the food chain. This might be the true reflection of the world behind the door. Chen Ge was a good friend. He was the one who brought up the rear and took on the biggest risk. After running down the street for several minutes, the doctor and Scissors, who ran at the front, finally saw the hotel that Chen Ge had mentioned. This was a building that combined a hotel and a restaurant. It was located at the center of Liwan City. It looked rather old, probably more than 10 years old. This is it. Go in. Go in. The distance between Chen Ge and the ghost was very close. The most obvious manifestation was that the white cat, which was originally lying on his back, was now clinging to his chest. Its claws gripped Chen Ge tightly, and it kept meowing shrilly. The passengers at the front entered the hotel, and Chen Ge finally sighed in relief. He aimed at the door and swung the hammer. After lightening the load, Chen Ge's speed increased again, and he entered the hotel dangerously. Close the door. The door closed, and a loud bang came from behind him. The other passengers rushed to help, stacking the tables and chairs at the door. Several minutes later, the door stopped shaking, but there was still the sound of knocking coming from outside the door. It's fine now. We can rest for a while. Chen Ge picked up the hammer and placed it in his backpack. He then picked up the white cat, which had been scared out of its wits. The cat collapsed on top of the bag like it did not have any bones. Big brother, are you sure it's fine? The woman outside is banging on the door with her head. The drunkard looked out through the gap. She really is banging on the door with her head. Quote. Don't worry, everything is under control. Chen Ge stood up and stretched his body. Compared to the other passengers, Chen Ge's physical condition was much better. This hotel belongs to the other ghost's territory, so the headless woman won't dare enter for now. Chen Ge touched the white cat's stomach. The little guy was so scared that he even forgot to resist. Wait a minute, that's a lot of information. What do you mean by the other ghost's territory? Is there a similar female ghost staying at this hotel? The drunkard realized that he had matured a lot that night. Even his mind was working better. You can think of it that way, but don't worry, the female ghost is still asleep. She won't wake up for now. Chen Ge walked into the hotel, leaving the passengers standing where they were. He actually admitted it. There really is a female ghost. Fight fire with fire. So cruel. The drunkard turned to look at the doctor and Scissors. Wait, at least say something. There's a female ghost outside the door, and she's a ghost. Quote. Quiet down, so what if she's a ghost? Scissors slapped the drunkard's hand away and said in a chilling tone, if you provoke me, I'll kill a ghost for you to see. Of the group, only the doctor was calmer. Didn't you notice that he used the word, temporarily? In other words, the female ghost outside might come in, and the sleeping one might wake up. We might have to face two baleful ghosts at the same time. Quote. What do you mean? The drunkard felt like the doctor was the most reliable of the group, so he tried to decipher the deeper meaning behind the doctor's words. What I mean is, hurry up and move your body. You might end up worse than you are now. The doctor panted heavily. Of the three passengers, Scissors was the one with the most stamina. It was obvious that he had done a lot of preparation for this day, including training his body. No way, who did I offend? I'm just having a drink. The drunkard climbed up from the ground. Hearing the knocking coming from the door, cold sweat poured down his face. Is anyone there? Chen Ge walked to the counter. The hotel looked the same as it did 10 years ago, similar to the setting in Xiaobu's game. 10 seconds later, a man's voice came from one of the rooms down the corridor. Wait a minute, I'll be right there. Quote. After another minute, the passengers saw a fat man walking out from the depths of the corridor. He was tying the apron with both hands. It was obvious that the apron was new and there was not a single stain on it. Why are you so slow? You have no efficiency at all. You must always remember that as a service industry, customer experience is the most important. Chen Ge glanced at the man impatiently. I'm sorry. I was helping in the kitchen just now. The middle-aged man wasn't angry at all. He just smiled. His chubby face made people feel close to him. Help in the kitchen. Chen Ge noticed that the middle-aged man's hands were wet. He had just washed them, but perhaps because he was in a hurry, there were still some dark red stains between his nails. Yeah, we only have one chef here, so I'll help out sometimes. The fat man chuckled. His eyes weren't big, and if he didn't turn his head, no one would know who he was looking at. Are you the boss here? After the drunkard entered Liwan City, this was the first time that he had met someone that he could communicate with normally, and he was quite excited. I have to help in the kitchen, work as a waiter, and do the accounting. This boss is actually worse than a worker. The fat man walked into the counter. Do you want to stay here or have a meal? What's the price? The doctor frowned. He had a feeling that something was not right. To be able to open a shop in a small town shrouded in blood fog, there had to be something wrong with this place. You can stay for the first night as you please. If you want to stay, we'll pick something from you on the second night to pay for the room. The fat boss seemed to be afraid that they would misunderstand, so he added, money doesn't mean much to us. We're more interested in some special souvenirs. What if you want to stay for a third night? Chen Ge asked lightly. We'll pick something from you. We'll chase you out when you can't. The boss looked like a nice person. This is the safest place in this small town. I understand. The drunkard nodded. This place is like a safe zone in a game. How about the four of us stay here for the night? These are your room numbers. As if afraid that the drunkard would change his mind, the fat boss took out 4 keys from under the counter, and each key had a number stuck on it. We don't need 4 rooms. 2 of us will share one. The doctor was more cautious. That's fine, you can decide for yourselves. I'll go to the kitchen to ask around, and I'll prepare dinner for you later. The boss walked toward the kitchen. The direction that he left was different from the direction that he had come from. After the boss left, the doctor picked 2 rooms that were next to each other. We'll take these 2 rooms, and then the 4 of us will stay in one of them. The other one will be empty. At night, we'll take turns to keep watch over these 2 rooms. If there's a problem with one of them, wake everyone up immediately. Quote. That's amazing. Hope rekindled in the drunkard's eyes. As long as we survive until dawn or the fog disperses, we'll definitely be able to escape from this small town. Scissors agreed with the doctor's idea. Of the group, only Chen Ge had a strange expression on his face. That should be the safest solution. The doctor turned to look at Chen Ge. After all, Chen Ge was the backbone of the group. If the four of us hide inside the room, we'll be handing the initiative to the others. They'll have more than enough time to set up all kinds of traps, and we can only wait passively inside the room. Chen Ge did not even look at the keys on the counter. Then, what do you suggest we do? The group was very curious about the solution that Chen Ge had come up with. It's very simple. The boss himself said earlier that other than him, there's only one chef here. A smile appeared on Chen Ge's face, and he raised his finger. There are two of them, and there are four of us. Compared to spending a restless night, I'd rather have the initiative and be the boss for one night. You want to be the boss? The drunkard felt like his worldview was about to explode. Big bro, he was just talking to us so politely earlier, and now you're planning to be the boss. That's not very appropriate, is it? Quote. This is a shop that even a red specter does not dare enter. Do you really think the boss is being polite to you? Chen Ge had played Xiao Bu's game before, so he knew the purpose of this shop's existence. The customers were the food, and they would all be sent into the stomach of the red specter in the fridge. When it's time for dinner, you'll understand why I'm doing this. Chen Ge placed the white cat on his shoulder and held all four keys in his hands. Do not expose yourself. I hope you can trust me. I can also promise you that I am a good person, but my kindness has its own edge. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Kindness was not blindly forbearing, and it was not the kind of self-deceiving belief that good deeds would be rewarded. True kindness had power, and it was a virtue that would last one's whole life. Chen Ge was a kind person, but his way of being kind was very unique. Seeing how serious Chen Ge was, the people there initially wanted to say something, but after thinking about Chen Ge's words, they all fell silent. This was Liwan City, which was shrouded in blood fog. Ghosts roamed the streets, and murderers were everywhere. One wrong step could cost one's life. Kindness was precious in a place like this, but at the same time, kindness was the cheapest thing there. I'll listen to you. The doctor was the first to change his mind. He was a good judge of character, and in his heart, he had already placed Chen Ge as his only hope of escape. We'll do as you say. Scissors nodded in agreement. Of the three passengers, only the drunkard was slightly unwilling. It's decided. The minority has to obey the majority. Chen Ge distributed the four keys to the four passengers. Later, try not to say anything. Just leave everything to me. About 3 minutes later, the fat boss walked out from the kitchen. Have you chosen your rooms? Please register them here. Other than that, I have a few things to tell you. Quote. The fat boss took out a yellowed notebook from under the counter. It was covered in dust like it had not been used for a long time. He flipped open the notebook. It was filled with room numbers, and under each room number was a person's name. The strange thing was that some of the names were crossed out with a red pen, and some were circled with a red pen with a cross above them. Chen Ge had no idea what these symbols meant, but he felt like all the names that had been crossed out represented a life that had been lost. You'd better remember what I'm going to say next. The boss raised his hands above his head and made a strange pose. The lobby is the dining area. When it's time to eat, I'll personally go to each room to wake you up. During the rest of the time, you'd better not wander around outside. The corner of the corridor leads to the dormitory area. Before the first floor is full, the second floor is not open to the public. I hope you won't wander up to the second floor out of curiosity. If anything happens, the boss will not be responsible. Quote. We can't go up to the second floor. The shop isn't that big, but you sure have a lot of rules. Scissors clicked his tongue, and the wound on his face twitched. The fat boss seemed to have gotten used to these scary-looking monsters. His expression did not change at all as he patiently explained to Scissors, "I'm doing this for your own good. After midnight, there might be other customers at my shop, and I cannot guarantee that they won't make a move on you." "That makes sense. We will be careful." Chen Ge had the best attitude among the passengers. He didn't look like he was ready to take over the shop. "As long as you stay in your room obediently, nothing will happen. Also, I hope you remember, after you move in, don't open the door to anyone, not even your closest friends." The boss's small eyes were covered by the fat, and his expression changed slightly. "I'm not trying to scare you. Sometimes, a friend is not necessarily a friend. It could be something else." Chen Ge did not take the boss's words to heart. The man was obviously trying to sow discord and plant the seed of suspicion in their hearts. "All right, that's all I need to tell you for now. I'll call you when the meal is ready. Now, you should go and look at the rooms. The first night is free." The fat boss left after saying that. His footsteps were light, which did not match his fat body at all. "Now that we have 4 more people, we need to prepare more food." Chen Ge stared at the boss's back. He had no idea what the boss meant by the last sentence. Was he going to prepare more food for the 4 of them? Or was he treating the 4 of them as food? "Let's go and look at the rooms first. Relax, don't be so stiff." Chen Ge led the way into the corridor and used the key to open the room. The layout of the building was different from Xiao Bu's game, it was much bigger. An old man, a high schooler, a woman, and a police officer. I wonder if these passengers will show up. In the game, the police officer was the first to be killed by the boss. If the game was the same as real life, then the boss should have a police gun with him. This was one of the reasons why Chen Ge did not kill the boss directly. The rooms here are much cleaner than I expected. The doctor was the first to enter the room with the key. He looked around under the bed and the dresser. "What are you looking for?" The drunkard was confused. "Let me see if there are any bloodstains, or body parts or anything like that." "Don't be like that. We've finally found a safe place, and you're making me afraid to go in and take a look." The drunkard followed behind the doctor. "Why don't we stay together tonight?" The drunkard was really afraid. Not only was he afraid of other people, he was also afraid of the other passengers. Scissors was obviously not a normal person. His every action was just one step away from writing the word murderer on his face. Even though the man with the hammer looked like a nice person, the things that he said and did were definitely not something a normal person would do. In comparison, the doctor was more normal. After looking around his room, Chen Ge carried his backpack and started to wander around the other rooms. The old man stays in room 1. The tooth that can summon a red specter is inside the drawer of room 1, and the spare key to the hotel is inside this room as well. When he played Xiao Bu's game, he would be given several options after entering the old man's room, and he would have to let Xiao Bu pick one of the items to take away. However, the game was a game, and reality was reality. Chen Ge planned to shove all the items that he could use into his backpack and take control of this hotel. What's so special about this building that it's located at the center of Liwan City? When he played Xiao Bu, Chen Ge had only thought about survival, but now that he was here, he had to dig out all the secrets. Narrowing his eyes, Chen Ge inserted the key in his hand into the keyhole and started to shake it. His key naturally could not open the door to room 1. He was doing this to lure the old man out and then carry out the next step of his plan. The only thing that Chen Ge was worried about at the whole hotel was the red specter inside the fridge, and the teeth inside the old man's drawer were the key to awakening the red specter. Only by getting the teeth first would Chen Ge have nothing to worry about. He shook it for a long time, but there was no sound coming from room 1. It was like an empty room. "What are you doing? Our room is over there. Isn't there a room number on the wall?" The drunkard ran over to remind him. Chen Ge smiled faintly and put the key back into his pocket. He stared at room 1 for a while. He gripped the handle of the hammer in his backpack. He thought about it and decided not to act rashly. If he failed to find the tooth after breaking into the room, and the old man had already moved the tooth away, then the situation would spiral out of control. The longer we drag this out, the more troublesome it will be. When the boss realizes how dangerous we are, it'll be harder for him to make a move. Chen Ge was a very decisive person. He was looking for a chance. Once the hotel worker showed any sign of weakness, he would make his move immediately. Brother, the danger that we're in is all on you. Please calm down. The drunkard knew that Chen Ge would not listen to him, so he ran to find the doctor, hoping to persuade Chen Ge. However, just as he turned around, the door to room 1 opened a gap. You've entered the wrong room. An old man's voice came from inside the room. Chen Ge's pupils narrowed as he used yin-yang vision to look into the room. The lights were not on, and a short old man with a hunched back stood at the door. I'm so sorry, we didn't mean to. The drunkard quickly apologized on behalf of Chen Ge. He grabbed Chen Ge's arm. Let's go. Don't cause more trouble for them. The drunkard really wanted to pull Chen Ge away. All his actions and expressions were sincere. Perhaps because of that, after hearing the drunkard's words, the old man relaxed his guard. His hand that was holding the door lock loosened, and the gap widened to reveal his other hand that was hanging by his side. The hand was covered in wounds, and it held a piece of red cloth and several teeth that had been polished. Found it. Before anyone could react, Chen Ge reached out to grab the door to stop the old man from closing it. What are you doing? The drunkard and the old man screamed at the same time, and they started to panic. I want to borrow something from you. After saying that, Chen Ge barged into the room and clamped his hand over the old man's mouth. Come and help. Pick up all the teeth that have fallen to the ground. Don't leave a single one behind. Quote. The drunkard was stunned. Had he followed a madman? Without any warning or reason, he had suddenly attacked an old man, and from the way he had done it, it was clear that he had been planning this for a long time. The old man who had his mouth covered was so scared that he forgot to resist. A normal murderer or specter would wait until the dead of night to create a strange atmosphere of despair and then slowly tighten the trap to slowly force the victim to their death. Very few people would be like Chen Ge, who would turn on the old man in less than 3 minutes after entering the room. Big brother, the boss is still cooking for us. Are you going to kidnap his customer? The drunkard hurried to follow Chen Ge into the room. He was afraid that they would make too much noise and alert the others. This old man is not a customer. Chen Ge held the old man's mouth and walked to the drawer. Then who is he? The drunkard had always thought that Chen Ge was very mysterious, and he wondered if this old man was really that dangerous. This is the boss's father. Chen Ge opened the drawer, and like he had returned to his own home, he took out the keys, the teeth, and all the small things that were inside. His father. The drunkard stuttered. This is the first time we've met, so why did you kidnap his father? Why do you have to say so much? Come and help me. Tear the bedsheet and tie it together to tie him up. Chen Ge emptied the drawer and placed all the teeth inside his pocket. He then turned to tell the old man, who had his eyes wide open. I won't hurt you, and I hope that you will be more obedient and stop your pointless struggle. Even though the drunkard sounded unwilling, he was, after all, on Chen Ge's side. He followed Chen Ge's instructions and made the bedsheet into a simple rope to tie the old man up. All right, we've got the teeth. Now we just need to be careful of the gun that the boss might have. Chen Ge sighed in relief and used the pillow cloth to stuff the old man's mouth. Hearing the commotion, the doctor and scissors ran over. Don't look at me. He told me to do this. The drunkard's face was filled with helplessness. I have no idea how many living people are needed to feed a red specter with bulimia, but I am sure of one thing, everyone in this restaurant has blood on their hands. Chen Ge did not have the time to explain. Let's go out first. We'll be exposed if there are too many people. I'll explain to you later. Just as they left the room, the fat boss's voice came from the kitchen. It's time to eat. The fat boss and another large man wearing a chef's hat pushed the dining cart out. It was a rarely seen large red dining cart. It looked festive, and there were 9 pieces of cake and a pot of red tea placed on it. Cake. Seeing the cake, Chen Ge was reminded of a scene from Xiao Bu's game. 4 people only needed to cut a knife to split the 9 pieces of cake. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but history repeated itself. Chen Ge, the doctor, scissors, and the drunkard, there were 4 of them again. This can be considered a midnight snack. If you're hungry, you can have some first. The fat boss still did not know what had happened inside room 1, and he looked at the group with a smile. Being stared at by the fat boss, Chen Ge, the doctor, and scissors acted like nothing had happened. Only the drunkard felt apologetic. Please, have a seat. The fat boss was very friendly. He and the chef placed the pastries on the table. The doctor, the drunkard, and scissors took their seats. When Chen Ge prepared to sit down, his heart raced, and the sound of static entered his ears. Xu Yin is reminding me. Is there something wrong with the chair? Chen Ge did not sit down but tossed his backpack on the chair. The group did not touch the cake. At such a dangerous place, even the drunkard knew not to eat food of unknown origin. You don't think I've poisoned the cake, do you? The fat boss chuckled. I'm not a scammer. Don't worry and eat. Everything is free for the first night. But if you want to continue to stay, then I'll have to collect some remuneration from you. After saying that, the fat boss and the chef pushed the cart back, leaving only Chen Ge's group in the lobby. This boss doesn't look like a bad person. The drunkard's eyes kept wandering toward room 1. If he finds out that his father has been kidnapped, he'll probably die from anger. Take a look at the table, and then you can tell whether the boss is a good person or not. Chen Ge moved the cake away. There were many knife marks on the wooden table, and some of the marks were very deep. It was obvious that they had been left behind by a heavy slash. Do you know why they served 9 pieces of cake when there were only 4 of us? Why? Just as the drunkard said that, a wave of dizziness washed over him, and he almost collapsed to the ground. This is bad. The doctor and scissors were also affected. They struggled to get up, but their bodies were getting weaker and weaker. How did I get hit? Chen Ge thought that he had been very careful, but there had still been an accident. How come I don't feel dizzy? Chen Ge moved the backpack away and used yin-yang vision to look at the chair, and he finally noticed something. The chair was very old, and the surface was uneven. Under the cover of the stains, there were some very small dark red spikes. After a closer look, Chen Ge realized that they were human fingernails that had been soaked in blood. The cake was placed on the table, and everyone's attention was drawn to it. The chair was taken out from underneath the table, so very few people would pay attention to the surface of the chair. No wonder it's a 3.5-star difficulty. Even with the guide, I almost screwed up. Chen Ge grabbed the backpack and looked behind him. The kitchen door was open, and 2 heads poked out. The fat boss and the chef had been observing them. After noticing that the 3 passengers had been hit, the fat boss and the chef walked out from the kitchen with smiles on their faces. They were holding knives that were used to cut bones. You're the only one left. The fat boss's tone changed, and he dropped his disguise. Looking at the knives in the fat boss and the chef's hands, a smile slowly appeared on Chen Ge's face. Rushing out with knives in their hands, this means that the boss probably hasn't gotten his gun from the police. I only need to make my move when they get close, and they won't have the chance to turn the tables. The boss was plotting against Chen Ge, but Chen Ge was plotting against the boss as well. 3 of the 4 had fallen. The boss felt like he had the advantage in numbers, so he could make his move. He did not know that of the people before him, 99% of their combat power was on Chen Ge alone. The reason Chen Ge did not act rashly after he entered the hotel was because he was afraid of the boss's trump card, like the police gun and the red specter inside the fridge. Now, both sides felt like they had the upper hand, so they all had smiles on their faces. The man might have hidden his gun. The bullets are limited, so he won't use it unless it's necessary. Therefore, I'll have to strike first. Before he can react, I'll cripple their arms so that they won't be able to open fire. Chen Ge's way of dealing with problems was simple. To prevent accidents from happening, he would solve the problem from the root. Give up resisting. We mean you no harm. We just want you to play a little game with us. The boss thought he had the upper hand. His expression was relaxed. I believe you've realized that there's something wrong with the chair. The poison on it will slowly make you lose your ability to resist, and then you'll die after experiencing extreme pain. The boss took out a transparent glass from his pocket. Blood vessels were moving inside it. I only have one bottle of medicine here. Of the 4 of you, only one can survive. I'm not poisoned, so your threat is useless against me. Chen Ge pulled open the zipper of his backpack and reached his hand into it. Soon, you'll end up like them. I advise you not to do meaningless things lest you lose an arm or a leg, and that will affect the gaming experience. The fat on the boss's face jiggled from excitement. He seemed to enjoy watching living people kill each other. The feeling of crushing everything beautiful and trampling it on the ground made him feel good. Game. What kind of game do you want to play? Chen Ge was interested in games. His haunted house needed more interesting entertainment. Normal games did not fit the haunted house's atmosphere, but a game that came from the mouth of a murderer was different. A creepy haunted house coupled with a game that murderers loved to play. Chen Ge could already picture the screaming faces of the visitors in his mind. There are many, such as cutting the cake, snatching the chair, hide and seek, and so on. The fat boss felt that he was in control of the situation. He patiently explained the games to Chen Ge. The cruel rules of the game, the gaming experience that made people cry out for their insanity. Just listening to it made Chen Ge feel uncomfortable. If I were to completely copy it, the visitors would probably end up in the emergency room, but some of the game's ideas are not bad. Tourists. What are you talking about? The fat boss and the chef were only a few meters away from Chen Ge. Sorry, because I have a lot of friends with me, so I'm used to talking to myself. Chen Ge did not explain to the fat boss the relationship between having more friends and talking to himself. He had squeezed out all the potential value of the fat boss, and he was ready to tear off his disguise. You have the advantage of numbers, and you have weapons. Even though I do not have much chance of winning, I will not just sit and wait for death. Chen Ge gritted his teeth, and his expression was fierce. Actually, compared to using poison, we prefer to kill fresh life. The more you struggle, the more excited we get. The fat boss could not help but laugh. His body was shaking like a shaking mountain of meat. The more the victim struggles, the more excited you get. Chen Ge waited until the fat boss reached him before he suddenly revealed a smile. That's great. Today, I will let you have your fill of excitement. Tossing the backpack away, Chen Ge gripped the handle of the hammer that was as thick as a spine. He raised it high and swung it at the fat boss's chest. PFF'd. By now, Chen Ge had confirmed that the fat boss was a living person because the blood that the man spat out was still warm. Aren't you very excited? Considering that the fat might have the effect of absorbing shock, Chen Ge used all his strength. The fat boss's large body could not withstand it at all, and he was smashed to the ground. Without stopping, before the chef could react, Chen Ge rushed forward and broke both of the fat boss's arms and one of his legs. Even though he had the upper hand, Chen Ge would not let his guard down. He was not sure whether the fat boss had a gun or not, so he used the safest method. With both of his arms broken, Even if he had a police gun, he would not be able to use it. Vicious, decisive, cunning, and cautious, that was the impression that Chen Ge had left on the chef. He was still thinking about what kind of dish to cook with these customers, and the next moment, his boss was smashed until he spat out blood. What kind of despicable and shameless person would have to be to carry such a huge hammer in his backpack with him everywhere he went? The chef's eyes darted about anxiously. The cleaver in his hand was like a toy compared to the man's hammer. He was trying to come up with a solution in his mind, and when he raised his head, he accidentally met Chen Ge's eyes. The cruel and scary gaze was chilling. Just as he thought that Chen Ge was going to say something to him, Chen Ge charged at him with the hammer. He did not waste any words, and he could not find any opening. It was too fast. Before his brain could come up with a solution, his body already felt the pain. The cleaver in his hand fell to the ground. The chef watched as his arms fell limply to his side, and his fingers loosened weakly. The chef wanted to say something, but Chen Ge did not give him the chance. He was too careful. Before he had control over the situation, he would not waste words, and he would not allow the enemy to interrupt him. After a few more blows, the chef collapsed to the ground. "All right, you can speak now. Tell me, where is the antidote that can help them recover their mobility?" Chen Ge first took the antidote from the fat boss's hands. He looked at the blood vessels inside and was reminded of the time when he fought against the Society of Strange Tales at Coffin Village. At the time, Wu Fei had a similar bottle of blood vessels. Don't be tricked by him. The chef was about to say something when the fat boss shouted. "I haven't made any promises to you, and I never lie to anyone." Chen Ge squatted down before the fat boss and started to search him. The chef's face was red, but he did not say anything. "If I were you, I wouldn't give them this bottle of antidote." The fat boss's arms were broken, and his chest was caved in. Blood continued to pour out of his mouth. He looked so pitiful, but his attitude was firm. Why? Chen Ge knew the fat boss's trump card. The man was probably waiting for the old man to use his teeth to summon a red specter to clear the place. Can you believe the words of your enemy? Actually, this is a bottle of poison. I want to enjoy the look of despair on your faces. I will let the four of you kill each other, and when there is only one left, I will give him the poison. Then, I will watch as he slowly dies. The fat boss sounded deranged. His voice was loud, and his eyes kept glancing at the direction of room 1. What a coincidence, I also like to see the expression of despair on a living person's face. Chen Ge reached into his pocket and took out a piece of black cloth. He opened it before the fat boss, and inside was a set of teeth that had been polished. You keep looking at that room. Is it because there is this thing in that room? The fat boss was silenced. He tried to hide the shock in his heart, but he could not control the expression on his face. Tell me, where is the antidote? Chen Ge swung the hammer. My patience is limited. The boss and the chef were silent. After a minute or two, the boss slowly said, I can tell you where the real antidote is, but you have to promise to let us live. Take the antidote and leave. No problem. To be honest, I have no interest in you too. Chen Ge was telling the truth. Everything he did was for the red specter inside the hotel. The antidote is stored in a special place. I'll personally take you there. The boss's face was filled with anxiety and regret, like he had given up. Do you mind helping me? Chen Ge had broken both of his arms and one of his legs, so there was only one way he could move. Don't play tricks. Tell me the place first, and I'll consider whether I should take you there or not. After searching behind the fat boss and the chef, Chen Ge found another bottle of antidote. From how he saw it, the 2 bottles of antidote were meant for him. Okay, I'll tell you. It's in the drawer of the 3rd room on the 2nd floor. The fat boss seemed to have accepted his fate and cooperated. The chef beside him was expressionless, like he was worried that he might expose himself. On the second floor. Chen Ge thought back to the Xiao Bu game. He did not have much of an impression of the second floor. To prevent any accidents, he crippled the chef first and then carried the fat boss to the second floor. The room that the fat boss mentioned was his own room. There were many old pictures inside, but strangely enough, they were all pictures of him with a woman. Is that your mother? Yes, I have a bad relationship with my father, so I only have pictures with my mother. A happy smile appeared on the fat boss's face. My mother is very beautiful. If there's a chance, I'll bring you to meet her. That sounded reasonable, but the premise was that Chen Ge did not know what the fat boss's mother looked like. This is the antidote. The fat boss had Chen Ge open the drawer. There were 3 sealed glasses inside, and they were filled with some gray sediment. Are you sure? Chen Ge placed all the sealed glasses into his backpack and led the fat boss back to the first floor. He walked to the dining table and placed the 3 sealed glasses on the table. Can you hear me? No problem. I'm very conscious now, but I can't control my body. After witnessing Chen Ge's 1 versus 2 fight, the drunkard's attitude became much better. These 3 glasses were taken from the boss's room. He said that they are the antidote, but I don't think they are that simple. Chen Ge then took out the 2 bottles that the boss said were poison and placed them on the table. I think the boss is lying. These 2 bottles are the real antidote. Unfortunately, there are only 3 bottles inside the boss's room. If we use 1 bottle, we won't have enough antidote. Quote. Then, Chen Ge picked up the white cat, who was watching the show from afar. He held the cat's head. At Coffin Village, you consumed similar blood vessels. I'll open these 2 different antidotes later, and you'll help them identify them. Chen Ge did not care whether the white cat understood him or not. He first opened the glass with the gray sediment and placed it before the white cat. A faded stench came out from inside the glass, and the white cat struggled to leave. Closing the lid, Chen Ge then opened the glass with the blood vessels. Once he opened the lid, the white cat seemed to smell something. Its ears perked up, and its beautiful eyes stared at the glass in Chen Ge's hand. When Chen Ge fully opened the glass, a whale came out from inside. The blood vessels inside all came alive, and they tried to escape. The white cat's eyes turned red as if something deep inside its veins had been activated. It leapt at Chen Ge's hand. Chen Ge quickly closed the lid, and the white cat finally calmed down. The fact that these blood vessels can trigger a reaction from the white cat is very unusual. It might be similar to the blood vessels that the Society of Strange Tales obtained from the world behind the door. Chen Ge closed the lid and placed all the glasses together. My cat has a strong reaction to the bottle with the blood vessels. Personally, I believe this blood vessel is the real antidote, and the boss is probably lying. Chen Ge gave his opinion. The other 3 passengers had different reactions, and Chen Ge saw that. The choice is yours. I will not interfere, but I hope you will be careful. I believe you. The first to make the choice was Scissors. He used the last of his strength to grab one of the glasses filled with blood vessels. The brighter the color, the more dangerous it is. This is common sense in the natural world. I have learned some things about pharmacology, but I cannot convince myself to consume living blood vessels. The doctor hesitated and pushed one of the bottles of black sediment toward himself. 2 of the passengers had made their choice, and only the drunkard was left. He trusted both the doctor and Chen Ge. Now that the 2 of them were in conflict, he did not know how to choose. Psychologically, he was more inclined to choose the grayish-black medicine, but he had a feeling that the boss might do the opposite and purposely make the antidote look like poison. 3 minutes later, the sound of the female ghost knocking on the door grew louder. When the door looked like it would collapse at any moment, the drunkard finally made his choice. He picked up the other bottle of blood vessels. Who would go first? This was another question that tested human nature. The first person to attempt it was practically risking his life to explore the path. I'll go first. Scissors forced himself to sit up. Can you help me open the lid? Okay. When Chen Ge walked to his side and prepared to help him open the lid, Scissors suddenly told Chen Ge, "My phone is inside the left pocket of my pants. It has all the information about my big brother. If I make the wrong choice, I hope that when you run into him, you can help him. If you don't, there's no need to search for him." Okay. Chen Ge admired Scissors more and more. A truly courageous person did not say that they were afraid of anything but that they could make a decision even when they were afraid to the point of death. Thank you. Scissors moved the glass to his lips. He only needed to tip it, and the blood vessels inside the glass voluntarily rushed into his mouth. There were not many blood vessels in the glass, it was only 1/5 of what the white cat had swallowed. After swallowing the blood vessels, pain surged through him. Scissors hugged his head and collapsed to the ground. Many crying faces appeared in his eyes, and the expressions on his face kept changing. They were very similar to the faces in his eyes. The pain was unbearable. Scissors scratched his body, and the scariest thing was that under the new scratches, there were very thin blood vessels that looked like swimming fish. The pain lasted for a whole 10 minutes. Scissors' body was soaked in sweat. After enduring the pain, he gritted his teeth and climbed up from the ground. The wounds on his face kept leaking blood. It flowed down his face and dyed his collar red. It added a unique presence to Scissors. I'm still alive. With control over his body back, Scissors crawled up from the ground. This meant that the blood vessels were the real antidote. He gripped his fists tightly and then slowly released them. He walked back to stand before Chen Ge. Thank you. I didn't do anything. Everything is your own choice. Chen Ge then turned to look at the other 2 passengers. The doctor shook his head and put down the gray glass with an apologetic expression on his face. The drunkard seemed to be afraid of pain. He hesitated over whether he should drink it or not. In the end, with Scissors' encouragement, the drunkard also drank the blood vessels. You keep an eye on him. I'll go and have a chat with the boss. Chen Ge picked up the glass with the gray sediment and walked to the boss. He twisted the lid open. This is poison, right? This is also the antidote. I'm not lying to you. The boss still refused to admit his mistake. Chen Ge was too lazy to argue with him. He pried open the man's mouth and prepared to pour the gray sediment into his mouth. Wait a minute. The 3 of you were poisoned, and there are only 2 antidotes. I'll tell you the location of the 3rd antidote. The boss struggled on the ground. The 3rd antidote. Chen Ge was tempted. The blood vessels were beneficial to the white cat. If there was an extra, he could bring it back to the haunted house to study it. I won't lie to you this time. Cold sweat broke out on the shopkeeper's forehead as he stared at Chen Ge with his beady eyes. Okay, I'll trust you again. Where is the 3rd bottle? Chen Ge pulled the fat boss up and placed him on the chair. Feeling the pain, the fat boss's expression became slightly twisted. I actually put the antidote in the fridge in the kitchen. It's on the upper floor. Kitchen fridge. If not for the fact that he had played Xiao Bu before, Chen Ge might have believed the fat boss. He knew very well that there was no antidote in the fridge, but there was a red specter. If you don't believe me, you can take me there with you. The fat boss's eyes were wandering, and he glanced at the pocket where Chen Ge kept his teeth. You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Chen Ge pried open the fat boss's mouth and prepared to pour the bottle of poison into him. The fat boss, who had lost both of his arms and only one leg left, struggled desperately on the ground. He still did not know that Chen Ge had seen through him. I'm not lying to you. I really did put the blood vessels inside the fridge. If you don't believe me, you can go and take a look. Quote. Even at the last moment, you still want to harm me. You sure are an evil man. There is no cure for you. Chen Ge raised the hammer and smashed the fat boss's remaining leg. He found a cloth and stuffed it into the fat boss's mouth. The banging at the hotel door became louder. There was not much time left for Chen Ge. How are your bodies recovering? Chen Ge looked at Scissors and the drunkard, who looked like they had just been fished out of the water. Both of them were soaked in sweat, and they looked quite pitiful. I've never felt so good before. My whole body is filled with energy. It feels like I'm 10 years younger. The drunkard climbed up from the ground and swung his fists, creating gusts of wind. Since you've recovered, come and help me. Go into the room and find some rope to tie them to the chairs. If you don't have any rope, use the bedsheets to make some rope. After giving the two their tasks, Chen Ge turned to the doctor. Don't worry, I'll go elsewhere to look. There should be more antidotes inside the hotel. Okay. The doctor collapsed weakly on the table. Aren't you going to the fridge in the kitchen? I'm curious, how did you know the boss was lying? Is it through micro-expressions and psychology? Quote. If you're curious about what's inside the fridge, I can bring you there. Chen Ge tied the fat boss and the chef to the chairs and then dragged them to the hotel door. When the angry headless woman barged in, they would be the first people she saw. Once the woman tried to kill them, Chen Ge would immediately move on to the next step of his plan, release the glutton monster from the fridge. The two red specters would exhaust each other, and then he would come out to clean up the mess. The antidote is not inside the fridge. We need to hurry and search the other parts of the hotel. Chen Ge found the white cat and waved the empty bottle under the cat's nose. Then he put the empty bottle away and pointed at the hotel corridor. Remember this smell. Go. The beautiful eyes looked at Chen Ge with confusion, and the white cat lay where it was without moving. Big brother, are you using a cat like a dog? The drunkard carried the doctor on his back. Seeing Chen Ge's current state, he could not connect this young man before him to the crazy hammer-wielding man earlier. I'm trying to explore its potential. Seeing the white cat shrink back under the table, Chen Ge felt a headache coming on. The cat was getting more and more cowardly. After packing up everything, Chen Ge's group went to the second floor. There was a sign in the middle of the corridor that said no entry, and there were blood stains on the ground that had not been cleaned. Following the blood stains, Chen Ge pushed open the door of one of the rooms. The scene inside was rather gory, like an intense fight had taken place, and blood stains were everywhere. Based on the degree of coagulation, the victim's time of death should be less than 3 hours ago. In other words, before we entered the hotel, there was a murder here. Chen Ge squatted on the ground. He had gotten used to this kind of scene. The drunkard nodded in admiration and then nudged the doctor on his back. Are you sure he works at the theme park? Could he be a spy planted by the police at the theme park? Quote. Facing the drunkard's question, the doctor could only smile bitterly. Who knew why this young man would know so much about a murder scene? The group explored the second floor and realized that this place was basically a meat factory. The fat boss and the chef had no humanity. In their eyes, life was just a toy and food. Let's go take a look on the first floor. They searched the whole building, but they still could not find the antidote. The blood inside the bottle appeared to be something extremely precious even in the world behind the door. I'm so sorry to drag everyone down, but how about we leave this place first? The doctor could not move his body, but he was still conscious. The female ghost is guarding the front door. If we sneak out from the back door, she probably won't notice us. The thing has already targeted us. If we want to leave, we have to transfer her hatred to someone else first. Chen Ge led the other 3 passengers back to the first floor. He looked at the boss who was tied up at the door, and his sharp gaze caused the fat boss and the chef's hearts to palpitate. It's still not safe enough. I have to get the female ghost to make her move on them. Only then will my next plan be able to proceed smoothly. Under the two's despairing gaze, Chen Ge went to the kitchen to find a large basin used to wash vegetables. He filled it with half a basin of water and brought it out. What are you planning to do? A bad feeling rose in the chef and the boss's hearts. Chen Ge ignored them. He took out the 3 bottles of grayish-black sediment from his backpack and poured the contents into the basin. After mixing it well, Chen Ge smashed the table and used the table's legs to prop the basin above the door. Once the female ghost opened the door, the basin would fall down. This was a common prank, but the target was a red specter. The grayish-black powder is not something good. After being doused with this stuff, the female ghost will definitely be overwhelmed by anger, and she'll attack the living things around her. Chen Ge turned back to look at the chef and the fat boss. The despair in their eyes was about to spill out. If they could start over, they would not have gone to provoke Chen Ge. If there is a devil in this world, he must look like him. The drunkard hid far away from the doctor. He looked at Chen Ge's various traps and silently thanked himself. Thankfully, I'm on his side now. After Chen Ge finished setting up the traps, he waved at Scissors and the rest. Come with me. He hugged the white cat and called everyone to come to the second floor. After turning left into the first room, he used the hammer to break the wooden board on the window. Stay in this room and prepare more ropes. If there's an accident, escape through this window. What are you planning to do? Scissors sensed that there was something wrong with Chen Ge's tone. He could not put his finger on it, but it sounded like worry and excitement. Don't worry so much. Temporarily, you won't be able to help. Just stay alive. Chen Ge looked out the window. The residential area that we went to earlier has been cleared. When I tell you to run, jump out the window and wait for me at that residential area. Okay, you be careful. Don't worry. By the way, bring my cat with you. Chen Ge placed the white cat in the bedroom. He had just turned around when he felt a weight on his shoulder. He turned back to look, and the white cat had already jumped onto his shoulder. Its beautiful eyes looked at Chen Ge with confusion as if asking, "Do you not want me anymore? Follow me if you want, but don't run away when you see a red specter." Chen Ge carried the bag back to the first floor and opened the door to the kitchen. At first glance, it looked like a normal kitchen. There was nothing special about it. If it's similar to Xiao Bu's game, there should be a hidden room behind the fridge. The glutton monster's head is inside the fridge, and her large body is inside the hidden room. Walking to the fridge, Chen Ge realized that the fridge did not have a socket. In other words, it was just a decoration. The hotel door should be open soon. Chen Ge reached out to hold the fridge and used yin-yang vision to stare at the front door. The headless woman was afraid as well, but anger and provocation had caused her to lose her rationality. She could sense that the person she was looking for was inside this building. After waiting for another 10 minutes, the headless woman's patience was wearing thin. Thin blood vessels appeared on the door, and at the same time, Chen Ge felt the fridge before him shake like something inside was about to awaken. Bang! When the blood vessels covered the door, the hotel door was finally forced open. The headless woman hugged her head, and her eyes were bloodshot as she walked into the hotel. She stepped in, and the iron basin on the door tilted downward. Countless blood vessels rose up, trying to fling the iron basin to the side. The headless woman did not expect someone to be so brave as to play a joke like this on her, but she still reacted at the first moment. The iron basin was pushed open, and the liquid that was mixed with grayish-black sediment fell onto the blood vessels, and something surprising happened. The grayish-black sediment seemed to be able to suppress even the red specter's blood vessels. They melted the blood vessels, and the head in the headless woman's arms screamed shrilly as she cut the blood vessels that had turned black. Losing its support, the iron basin on the door fell on the headless woman. It landed upside down on her neck, and it made a ping sound. What is that black sediment? Is it related to the black blood inside the wooden box from the Society of Strange Tales? Chen Ge had gained Dr. Gao's approval and became the new chairperson of the Society of Strange Tales. Alas, to deal with him, the society had used up all their resources. He knew a lot of information, but he had not gained anything substantial. This trip to Liwan City was different. The shadow had prepared for many years to help the ghost fetus, so there had to be many specialties behind the door here. I was too careless. The hotel is located at the center of Liwan City, and it has a top red specter like the glutton woman. The things that the boss collected must be very valuable. Chen Ge summed up the lesson in his mind. When I enter the other buildings, no matter what strange things I see, I'll try to take them with me. At the front door of the hotel, the female red specter stood in the middle of the door with an iron basin on her head. The head in her arms was completely twisted, and the red eyes were drowned in endless anger. In less than a second, more than 10 times the number of blood vessels gushed out from the wound on her neck, and all the living and non-living things around her were pierced through. Half of the hotel was covered in blood vessels. It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, the boss and the chef had lost all signs of life. I can't let her see me here. If I'm trapped in the kitchen, I'm dead. Chen Ge opened the fridge without hesitation. The back of the fridge was connected to the wall, and a large open mouth entered his sight. There was no time to take a closer look. Chen Ge took 2 steps back and tossed all the teeth and the piece of cloth into the female specter's mouth. After dealing with all that, Chen Ge rushed out of the kitchen. The anger of the headless woman at the door had not dissipated. When she saw Chen Ge, she screamed again. She had broken the rule of Liwan City and entered the hotel with her body. It did not feel good to be targeted by a red specter. Chen Ge raced around guest room 1. He had just left the kitchen when he heard heavy breathing coming from behind him. He turned to look. Pulsating blood vessels appeared on the wall of the kitchen. Then the wall that was connected to the fridge collapsed, and an incredibly ugly red monster appeared. So big. The first impression that the red specter in the fridge gave Chen Ge was that she was big. Her head looked normal, only slightly bigger than a normal person, but her body could fill an entire room. Chen Ge had seen many red specters before, but this was the first time he had seen one so large. Of all the red specters that I've seen, this is the ugliest one. Working at the haunted house, Chen Ge often had to put on scary makeup, so he had a high tolerance for scary appearances. Even so, when he saw the red specter in the kitchen, he moved his eyes away immediately. Pure horror and ugliness could not describe the woman anymore. The basketball-sized head had a sickly expression, and the large body gave off a red mist. Even from afar, Chen Ge could smell the foul odor. Pulling his gaze back, Chen Ge did not dare turn back. This extremely ugly red specter gave him a very dangerous feeling. She should be on the same level as the ghost from Coffin Village. In other words, this red specter could sustain a 3-star scenario alone. Liwan City itself is a 3.5-star mission. Ignoring the influence of losing control of the door, this monster should be the strongest red specter in Liwan City. No wonder the hotel is located at the center of Liwan City. Chen Ge did not slow down, and he arrived at the door of room 1 in the blink of an eye. He grabbed the door, and before he could do anything else, a head with blood vessels dangling from its neck came crashing at him from afar. The eyes were red, drowned in anger. The woman swore to kill Chen Ge. Calling Shu Yin in his heart, Chen Ge was ready to retreat. But the kitchen door slowly opened, and the wall seemed to come alive. Many thick blood vessels surfaced on the wall, and they pulsed like there was blood flowing through them. The wooden door creaked noisily. The headless woman stopped her attack on Chen Ge, and the head was dragged back into her arms by the blood vessels. How come it feels like I'm flying a kite? Chen Ge used this chance to retreat. The 2 red specters had successfully encountered each other, and his goal had been achieved. Now, he only needed to do one thing. Focusing his attention, Chen Ge examined his own heart. Zhang Ya, are you feeling better? Quote. Zhang Ya, can you hear me? Quote. Zhang Ya, I've found you a lot of delicious food. Quote. Sis, wake up. It's time to eat. Quote. Among the 4 passengers, 99% of their combat power came from Chen Ge, and 99% of Chen Ge's confidence came from Zhang Ya. If 99% of the fighting power of the 4 passengers came from Chen Ge, then 99% of Chen Ge's confidence came from Zhang Ya. A red specter who could support a 3-star scenario was not something Xu Yin could deal with. Even with Men Nan's help, they would only be able to buy a few more seconds. As he called Zhang Ya's name, Chen Ge rummaged through his backpack. He had many trump cards. He had the weakest red specter, Meng Nan, and the strongest lesser red specter, Yan Danian. He had many friends, but none of them could help him control the glutton monster. When he came up with the plan, Chen Ge had considered many problems. He had covered all aspects, but he had left out the possibility that Zhang Ya could not wake up. A red specter will fall into hibernation after consuming too much. With Zhang Ya's current power level, even if she consumed an entire normal red specter, she shouldn't fall into hibernation immediately. Could it be that the few drops of blood that Dr. Gao dropped out from the door contain more resentment than a normal red specter? When Chen Ge chased after the water ghost, he accidentally entered a burned building. Behind one of the doors, he accidentally saw the missing Dr. Gao. Even though it was just a glance, he was certain that the monster was Dr. Gao. At the time, to interfere with the shadow in eastern Zhujiang, Chen Ge had left a message for Dr. Gao inside the door, tricking him to go to eastern Zhujiang's Liwan city. Now that he thought about it, if the worlds behind the door were connected and it was a super nightmare made up of endless nightmares, then Dr. Gao might come to Liwan city. The map of Zhujiang appeared in Chen Ge's mind. Dr. Gao had destroyed the door to the underground morgue at Western Zhujiang Medical University. He had entered the world behind the door from that place, and the second time he appeared was at the residential area next to the rehabilitation center. If he connected Western Zhujiang Medical University, the rehabilitation center, and Liwan City, these 3 places formed a straight line on the map of Zhujiang. Dr. Gao is moving through the world behind the door, so the thing he's looking for should be in eastern Zhujiang. After realizing this, Chen Ge did not relax. If anything, he became even more nervous. The glutton monster was powerful enough to support a 3-star scenario on her own, but when Dr. Gao was still alive, he had already used the rules behind the door to create a 3-star scenario. Now that he had died, he had become a being that was closer to becoming a greater red specter. The two of them were not even on the same level. The door in Liwan City had gone out of control, and this scenario was given a 3.5-star difficulty by the Black Phone. Inside the underground morgue, Dr. Gao used his living body to bear all the despair of the scenario and swallowed a door. The door was destroyed in an unimaginable way, but as the door pusher, Dr. Gao had lost control. In fact, Chen Ge had a feeling that Dr. Gao himself could be seen as a moving 3.5-star scenario. Dr. Gao might appear, and the shadow serves the ghost fetus, a 4-star scenario, so I have to be wary of his trump card. There is also the owner of this door that has gone out of control in Liwan City, Xiao Bu. Even with Zhang Ya and my employees, I won't be able to gain any advantage in this mission. The final result is completely unpredictable. Chen Ge could not influence Dr. Gao and Xiao Bu's thoughts. The only thing he could do was to gather as much power as he could while the situation was still unclear. The confrontation between the 2 red specters did not last long. As Chen Ge predicted, when the glutton monster saw the 2 bodies at the door, she lost her mind. The stronger the red specter, the crazier they were. The ugly red specter who had just come out from the kitchen had its bloated body connected to the whole hotel. The blood fog that carried the foul odor floated around the room. The walls, ceiling, and floor started to show the pulsing blood vessels everywhere. The scene before him was similar to the world behind the door in the underground morgue. Staying there gave Chen Ge the illusion that he had been swallowed by some monster. "This is not good." Chen Ge called Zhang Ya's name many times, but the latter did not give him any reply. It appeared like Zhang Ya would only help him when his life was in danger. "When two tigers fight, one will be injured. This is my chance. Unfortunately, I am a living person. It will be too difficult to take advantage of a red specter." Chen Ge held his breath and retreated to the stairs. He did not want to leave just like that, so he decided to wait a little longer. Since they were both from Liwan City, the headless woman definitely knew that the hotel was the glutton monster's territory, but she probably did not expect the woman to wake up from her slumber so soon after she entered the hotel. When the distance was not that far, a red specter only needed 1 second to kill a normal person in 10 different ways. That was why she dared to enter the hotel without fear. Perhaps from her perspective, when the glutton monster woke up, she would have left already. She would not be able to defeat the monster head-on, but it would not be easy for the monster to catch up to her in the open. The plan was perfect, but unfortunately, she ran into Chen Ge. The moment she treated Chen Ge as a normal person, she had already lost. In the eyes of a red specter, a normal red specter was food that could provide resentment, and in Chen Ge's eyes, a normal red specter was food that could strengthen his employees. All life was equal, that was the fairness in Chen Ge's eyes. The timing was perfect. The headless woman was attracted by Chen Ge and rushed to the place that connected the kitchen to the corridor. At the same time, the glutton monster came out from the kitchen. The distance was too close, and the headless woman had no chance to escape. She could only take the first hit from the glutton monster and figure out a way to escape. The glutton monster seemed to read the headless woman's mind. Her large body, which was dominated by hatred and hunger, pressed forward like a giant elephant. The blood mist scattered, and the whole building seemed to come alive at the same time. The blood vessels that covered the building started to beat rhythmically. Then, like many chains, they detached themselves from the building and closed the front door of the hotel, sealing off the headless woman's escape route. The hatred in her eyes was not hidden. Blood vessels shot out from the headless woman's severed neck. She knew that she did not have the upper hand, so she did not fight the glutton monster head-on. Instead, she focused her energy and allowed the blood vessels to cover her body. The severed head was reattached to the neck. This should be how she looked before she died. She was wearing a nightdress, and the dress was dyed red. Countless blood vessels rushed at her. The headless woman tried her best to evade, but when she could not, she used the blood vessels to wrap around her body to force the blood vessels away. The glutton monster's main body did not move. Just moving the thick blood vessels was enough to put the headless woman in a difficult position. The difference in strength is quite big. What Chen Ge wanted to see was an evenly matched situation. It would be best if both red specters were heavily injured after the fight. However, the current situation was that the glutton monster was one-sidedly suppressing the headless woman. She could have just slowly whittled down the headless woman and gotten rid of her without suffering any damage. Inside Xiao Bu's game, when Chen Ge controlled Xiao Bu to see the two red specters fighting, he immediately controlled Xiao Bu to leave. He had no idea what happened next. Should I help the headless woman? Now, there were 3 choices before Chen Ge. The first was to help the headless woman suppress the glutton monster, and after the glutton monster was heavily injured, he would come back to deal with the headless woman. There were too many variables if he did that. The headless woman might find a chance to escape and not cooperate with Chen Ge at all. The second choice was to do nothing. After the glutton monster heavily injured the headless woman, he would have Zhang Ya come out to deal with the glutton monster. This was the safest plan, but the key problem was that Zhang Ya did not show any signs of showing up. No matter how many times Chen Ge called for her, she did not respond. The third choice was to leave. Other than Zhang Ya, Chen Ge did not have a single complete red spectre. He could deal with a normal red spectre in a group fight, but against a top red spectre, he could only run. Time is too tight. If I have another week, when Xu Yin finds his own heart and Bai Cholan completely digests Shang Qing's red spectre's heart, I will have 2 red spectres under my command, and I will have more room to maneuver. Chen Ge sighed internally. Time was too tight. In reality, he had used all the time he had every day, working day and night. If this was someone else, they would have broken down already. Chen Ge thought about it for a minute or two. The situation inside the hotel had changed drastically. Multiple openings appeared on the glutton monster's large body, and a woman's voice drifted out from them. Hungry. It was unclear which opening this voice came from. Initially, it was very weak, but gradually, all the mouths started to make this voice. Multiple mouths opened and closed on the same body. The scene was enough to make one's scalp go numb. The headless woman was affected as well, and her speed increased. From the beginning, she did not plan to fight back, she just wanted to escape. Hungry, hungry, I'm starving. The glutton monster screamed, and the mouths on her body tore open. Blood vessels tangled together, and they poked out from the mouths like tongues. This thing is so strong. With his yin-yang vision, Chen Ge could see clearly that the mouths on the glutton monster's body were slightly different. They seemed to belong to different people. Could it be that every time she eats a food, she will keep the mouth of the food? Do the mouths on her body belong to different people? Quote. The blood-red tongues reached out toward the headless woman, and the space for her to dodge decreased. After she was forced to the left side of the lobby, one of the tongues curled around the headless woman's leg. Not good. Chen Ge stood up. The power difference between the 2 red specters was too big. The battle might end at any moment, so he had to make a choice. If I help the headless woman, she might not appreciate it. If I run away, the glutton monster might become stronger after consuming the headless woman. A normal red spectre would sleep for a long time after consuming a red spectre, but Chen Ge believed that the glutton monster would reduce this time to the minimum. She kept complaining about her hunger, and the monster's body was like a black hole that could not be filled. She might have a digestive power that far surpassed other red specters. The glutton monster guards the hotel, and the hotel is at the center of Liwan City. Obviously, the shadow trusts her a lot, and that's why he gave her such an important place. After consuming the headless woman, she'll become even scarier, and that will put me in a bad position when I fight the shadow later. Chen Ge could see far away. If only Zhang Ya was here. That wouldn't be so troublesome. Chen Ge turned back to look at his shadow. He had only been glancing at it, but to his shock, he realized that his shadow was changing at a very slow speed. Zhang Ya has been hiding in my shadow. What is she doing? There was no more time to think. The headless woman's scream came from inside the lobby. When Chen Ge turned to look, he realized that the headless woman had voluntarily cut off her left leg that was wrapped around by the tongue. After leaving the body, the leg dissolved into blood vessels and was dragged back into the glutton monster's body by the tongue. After tasting fresh blood, the glutton monster became even crazier. Her whole body was shaking with excitement. Her mouths kept opening and closing, and more blood tongues reached toward the headless woman. Cornered, the headless woman knew that she could not escape. The blood vessels on her body started to retract, and they surged to her neck. She seemed to be preparing to give up her body and only deliver her head. Bang! At the crucial moment, the hotel door that was closed by the glutton monster was suddenly knocked open. A boy wearing a patient's garb rushed into the room, crying. He looked to be about 4 or 5 years old. His body was covered in blood, and he looked very pitiful. Chen Ge was about to make his move, but when he saw the boy, he stopped. Even in that situation, Chen Ge still managed to keep his cool. With one glance, he noticed that the boy was wearing a patient's garb. He was different from the other patients at Liwan City's hospital. This boy should be the patient who had been transferred to Liwan City with the curse. He was the scariest presence at Liwan City's hospital. He is covered in blood. He is a half-red specter, but since this boy has appeared here, it means that the red high heels should be nearby as well. The hotel was the most dangerous but also the safest place in Liwan City. To be able to force a half-red specter to this extent, the red high heels was quite powerful. The hotel door was knocked open, and the boy rushed in without thinking. From how he saw it, the monster behind him was the scariest thing in the world, but to his surprise, once he stepped through the door, his understanding of terror was once again refreshed. Thick veins intertwined with each other. Not far away, monsters with mouths were howling. Their tongues were poking through the gaps between the veins like they were trying to consume every living thing inside the building. The boy's face blanched instantly. He wanted to retreat, but the chance was too late. A pair of red high heels stopped outside the door. Compared to the pulsating veins and the ugly monsters inside the room, the red high heels appeared so elegant and elegant. Chen Ge did not expect the red high heels to show up at a time like this, and the thing that surprised him even more was that the red high heels did not hesitate to step into the hotel even though she had already seen the glutton monster. He had no idea whether it was because the red high heels was very confident in her power or because she was in desperate need of some information from the boy that she made such a rash decision. The hotel door opened, and the headless woman finally found her chance to escape. Blood vessels burst out from her body, and her head dragged her body toward the door. The headless woman had been gathering her power. She was not as powerful as the glutton monster, and they were on her home turf. This was the best solution that she could come up with. The blood vessels pierced into the veins and tongues like sharp blades. Both the glutton monster and Chen Ge had underestimated the headless woman's power. When she was alive, she appeared to have been frequently injured by sharp blades, and the cause of her death was related to the blades. That kind of pain and hatred was deeply imprinted in her soul, and she could not forget it even after death. She merged that feeling into her blood vessels, causing the blood vessels at the place where her neck was sliced open to be different from the blood vessels of other red specters. They were extremely sharp. This should be her hidden trump card. Countless veins and tongues were sliced open, and the headless woman managed to carve out a path of blood. For those who loved good food, being interrupted while they were eating was a very unpleasant thing. The glutton monster had just tasted fresh blood, and when she was about to eat, someone had come to disturb her. She did not care why the person had come in. From her perspective, as long as someone interrupted her meal, they had to understand that they were being served on the table. She needed extra pleasure to soothe her ugly heart. Hungry. So hungry. Quote. The paint on the wall peeled off, and Chen Ge realized with a shock that the layout of the hotel was very similar to Dr. Gao's underground morgue. The floor, walls, and ceiling were all made from blood vessels and bones. The walls of the underground morgue are filled with dead bodies, and the walls of this hotel should be filled with the leftovers of the female boss. From a certain perspective, the glutton monster's hotel was like a mini underground morgue. Ironically, the morgue and the canteen were intertwined. If not for the fact that he had seen it with his own eyes, Chen Ge would not have believed it. The glutton monster had absolute control over this building, and the whole hotel was like her second body. The ground was shaking, and the stairs collapsed. All the furniture in the room toppled over, and the door that the boy had knocked down closed again. Thick veins crawled across the door, completely blocking the exit. If he did not deal with her, it appeared like he would never be able to leave. Now I can only fight, and the situation now is in my favor. No matter what, Chen Ge was an optimistic person. There was one thing that stood out about him: no matter what kind of situation he was in, he could see hope. With the appearance of the red high heels, if she works together with the headless woman, they should be able to hold their own against the glutton monster. With my help, even without Zhang Ya's help, there's a chance that we can take down the glutton monster. Chen Ge did not expose himself immediately. He made all the preparations and hid in the dark, waiting for the perfect opportunity. No wonder Li Wan City is a 3.5-star scenario. Even the red specter in one of the buildings is so powerful. I wonder what the scariest monster here will be. Whether the glutton monster was the Shadow's trump card or not, Chen Ge planned to deal with her there and then. This monster was dominated by hunger and could not be communicated with. In other words, she had no chance of becoming an employee. Her life is too painful. It's time for her to free herself. The glutton monster locked down the hotel and attacked the boy, the red high heels, and the headless woman at the same time. The large body moved forward, and the whole building shook with it. The glutton monster's head, which was not in harmony with its body, let out a shrill scream. The mouths on its body split open, revealing teeth stained with blood. The veins in the hotel kept constricting. The glutton monster walked forward like she was planning to use the mouths on her body to devour the thing before her. The situation was getting more and more dangerous, but Chen Ge's eyes slowly brightened. This female boss is not invincible. Based on the current situation, she has at least two weaknesses. 1. Her movement speed is very slow, and she is not agile enough. 2. Even though there are many mouths on her body, they all listen to the one on her head. Compared to her large and scary body, that twisted head is too fragile. Chen Ge was not sure whether the glutton monster had a backup plan or not. He silently released Xu Yin and Bai Cholan, waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack the enemy's weak spot. Inside the hotel, the glutton monster had the absolute advantage, and that was why she dared to attack all the red specters inside the hotel at the same time. However, she had obviously underestimated the red high heels and the headless woman. At the moment of life and death, the two red specters had exploded with shocking power. The blood vessels around the headless woman's neck had the sharpness of sharpness. Even though she was being suppressed, it was not as if she was completely defenseless. Wherever she passed, flesh and blood splattered. From the direction she was moving, it was clear that she was trying her best to meet up with the red high heels. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The headless woman voluntarily joined the red high heels and the boy. It was unclear whether she wanted them to help her share the burden or she wanted to cooperate with them to defeat the glutton monster. The cage formed by the tongue and blood vessels continued to shrink, and the space for the three specters to escape became smaller and smaller. Initially, the blood vessels and tongues did not attack the red high heels directly, but as time moved on, more and more blood vessels turned their attention to the red high heels. They appeared to be planning to consume this pair of cursed and unfortunate shoes as well. The thick blood vessels attacked from all sides like giant snakes. At that moment, a woman's laughter suddenly echoed inside the hotel. It was crisp and melodious, and it made one's heart itch. It was as if one could tell from this voice that the other party had to be very beautiful. The voice comes from the red high heels. The laughter seemed to contain some kind of magic that could affect one's emotions. After Chen Ge heard that, the blood flow inside his body started to accelerate uncontrollably. Red spots appeared on his skin like some of the capillaries could not handle the blood flow and had all exploded. Compared to the glutton monster's low and scary roar, the laughter that came from the red high heels was on the other extreme. Hungry, hungry, hungry. The glutton monster heard the laughter as well. It was unclear whether it was due to jealousy or something else, but Chen Ge could sense her anger. How come it feels like the red high heels is mocking the glutton monster? Is this some kind of provocation? Quote. The crisp laughter echoed in the restaurant, and it slowly turned from pleasant to hysterical. In the end, a tall woman appeared vaguely on the red high heels. She was on the thin side, and she was taller than Chen Ge. Her whole body was wrapped in red bandages, and not a bit of skin was exposed. This woman had an excellent temperament. She must have been extremely beautiful when she was alive, but looking at her current appearance, it was as if she had undergone a full-body skin grafting operation before she died. Her bandaged foot reached into her high heels. The foot was pressed against the shoes, and blood seeped out from the gaps of the bandages. It seemed that the wounds on her body had not healed yet. This is crazy. Chen Ge did not even dare to imagine what the woman's body looked like under the bandages. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have provoked her on the bus. The blood vessels and long tongues entangled the high heels. She stood where she was and showed no intention of dodging. When the blood vessels approached, the woman raised her hands. The bandages showed off her perfect figure, but the few people present were not in the mood to appreciate it at all. Blood seeped out from under the bandage. The woman laughed hysterically. Pain was mixed with madness. She easily tore apart the blood vessels and the long tongue and quickly moved forward. Attack alone. Chen Ge did not quite understand what the red high heels was thinking. In terms of presence, even though the red high heels was very powerful, she was still much weaker than the glutton monster. Could it be that her special power is very powerful? Every red specter had their own special power, and this was related to the lingering spirit that they left behind when they died. For example, the blood vessels on the headless woman's neck were sharp. The more pain Xu Yin felt, the stronger he would be. Shang Qing, who suffered from hemiplegia, had half of his body made up of blood vessels, and he could change his shape at will. From appearance alone, Chen Ge could not tell what the red high heels' special power was, but since they were in the same boat, the stronger the red high heels was, the better it was for him. Trapped inside the cage made up of blood vessels and long tongues, the headless woman and the boy were unable to escape. Their individual power was not enough to fight against the glutton monster, so they could only follow behind the red high heels. With the headless woman and the boy blocking the attacks from behind, the pressure on the red high heels lessened. She tore apart the blood vessels and tongues and kept moving forward. What is she trying to do? The scene before him was like a bloody hell. The red high heels and the glutton monster, who had a huge difference in size, kept getting closer and closer to each other. There were too many blood vessels, so it was inevitable that some would miss the red high heels' line of defense. However, to Chen Ge's surprise, when the blood vessels landed on the red high heels' body, they did not seem to affect her too much. The bandages did not appear to be wrapped around a body but a blob of flowing blood. Under the control of the high heels, the blood vessels would pass through her body to minimize the damage. The glutton monster's attacks were futile. The mouths on her body bulged outward like they could not wait to swallow the red high heels. She had been hibernating inside the hotel in Liwan City, and her movement speed was not that fast. The other red specters here knew that she was not to be trifled with, so they rarely came to her. This meant that she rarely had the chance to taste a red specter. Under the stimulation of food, the glutton monster's body expanded again like a giant meatball. More blood vessels crawled out from her body and focused their attacks on the red high heels. She suddenly went berserk and separated the red high heels from the headless woman. 3/4 of the blood vessels were used to attack the red high heels while the other quarter was used to trap the headless woman and the boy. No matter how many blood vessels the headless woman destroyed, there would be more blood vessels and tongues to replace them. This was an unfair battle. When she destroyed the blood vessels, the glutton monster's main body would be unharmed, but once she was entangled by the blood vessels, she might lose the chance to fight back. She would be dragged toward the glutton monster and buried inside its stomach. The glutton monster only uses 1/4 of the blood vessels to stop the headless woman. It looks like she is doing this with ease. Chen Ge's palms were drenched in sweat. He was still looking for the right opportunity. The threat that the red high heels posed to the glutton monster was much bigger than the headless woman. Even though she was surrounded by the blood vessels inside the hotel, the red high heels was still slowly closing the distance between her and the glutton monster. Initially, the glutton monster was wary of the red high heels, but later, perhaps the desire for gluttony took over. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she could not care less about anything else. She screamed madly as she charged at the red high heels. All the mouths on her body opened like she was going to tear the woman before her apart and swallow her whole. The bell-like laughter echoed inside the hotel again. The woman opened her arms. Her tall body formed a stark contrast to the glutton monster. The bandage on her forehead slowly fell off. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders. She stood with her back to Chen Ge. Combined with the blood vessels and tongues, of all the people in the hotel, only the glutton monster could see the woman's face. "Am I beautiful?" The three simple words appeared to carry the most vicious curse. The red in the glutton monster's eyes disappeared instantly. Her large body wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. The bandage completely fell off. Every drop of blood on the woman's body sprayed at the glutton monster with intense hatred. The blood droplets were like burning flames. The blood fog was burned, and all the mouths on the glutton monster were wailing. Every drop of blood is a curse. Just what did this woman experience when she was alive? How could she possess such a scary hatred? Chen Ge was thankful that he had not angered the woman. If even one drop of her blood came into contact with him, he would not be able to escape from this terrible fate. Black and red smoke billowed out from the glutton monster's body. Her large body was shrinking at a rate visible to the naked eye. The flame of the curse was still burning, leaving behind ghastly scars. "Hungry! Hungry!" Quote. The glutton monster's deformed head screamed madly at the red high heels, as if only food could alleviate the pain. No matter what it was, even if it was a curse, she would swallow it whole. The blood vessels swept and attacked from all directions, sealing off all of the red high heels' escape routes. The glutton monster's large body pressed down on the red high heels, and the mouths bit at the figure wrapped in bandages. The glutton monster's body was too tough to resist the curse. Even if she was burned by the curse, she could still move freely. The red high heels' curse is slowly seeping into her body. It will probably take some time to damage her inner core. Chen Ge paid close attention to the situation. He was worried that the red high heels' blood would drip onto Xu Yin, so he did not dare ask Xu Yin to help. The glutton monster was weakening. The blood vessels around it started to wither. The walls of the vessels started to wrinkle, and black liquid leaked out from them. The pressure on the headless woman lessened. Without hesitation, she abandoned the red high heels and prepared to leave on her own. The boy in the patient's garb next to her had the same idea. The two monsters tore at the weakest part of the blood vessels, one at the front and one at the back. The layers of blood vessels and tongues were torn apart. The glutton monster screamed shrilly. The blood vessels and tongues were part of her body. Pain and uncontrollable hunger merged together, and the glutton monster started to change. The large body shrunk inward, and the four limbs that were previously covered by flesh and blood slowly revealed themselves. The glutton monster had been lying on the ground all this while. Her limbs were bound by black chains, but perhaps because she had worn them for too long, the chains had grown into her flesh and could not be removed. This monster was purposely imprisoned inside the hotel. The glutton monster lifted her head and howled. The chains that extended from the hidden kitchen were pulled taut. Her movement was restricted. Various negative emotions rushed into her mind, and she went on a rampage. Her skin cracked, and countless blood vessels leaked out from her body. The thick blood vessels inside the hotel also cracked open. A normal person would not be able to imagine a scene where the blood vessels were covered with mouths. Hungry! Hungry! The glutton monster had a powerful digestive ability. The blood vessels that she had accumulated over the years had reached a scary level. Now that they were unleashed, they created a red tide inside the hotel. Half of the headless woman's body was taken away by the blood vessels, and her most important head was bitten by the mouths on the blood vessels. The body of the boy in the patient's garb turned transparent like he could disappear at any moment. Xu Yin and Bai Cholan stood before Chen Ge, but even so, when the blood tide rushed at him, he felt like he was suffocating, like his soul was being washed out of his body. What a scary thing. Biting on the tip of his tongue to maintain his calm, Chen Ge turned to look at the red high heels, who was closest to the glutton monster. When the tide came, she was the first to be affected. The red high heels had fallen to the ground, and the bandages that were dripping with blood scattered everywhere. A blurry figure was entangled by multiple blood vessels. Any blood vessels that got close to her were rapidly rotting, but the glutton monster did not care. Her eyes were red from hunger, and she swore to consume the woman before her. Hungry. I'm starving. Quote. The blood vessels that she had accumulated over the years were released at once. The glutton monster's body slowly shriveled like a leaking balloon. She won't be able to launch a second attack in a short period of time. Chen Ge looked at the hungry glutton monster and realized that his chance had arrived. He flipped through the comic in his hand. Meng Nan. A boy in a red shirt who looked about 4 or 5 stood next to Chen Ge, and his eyes were filled with resentment. 3 heavily injured red specters. Eating any one of them will take you a long time to digest. What do you think? I've been very kind to you, haven't I? Chen Ge knew what Meng Nan was going to say, so he spoke first. 3 red specters. When Meng Nan first appeared, he felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere, but when he poked his head out from behind Chen Ge, he was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. He forgot everything that he wanted to say. Top red specter. Have you lost your mind? How dare you provoke such a thing? Quote. Eat her, and you'll be the top one. The opportunity was fleeting, and hesitation would lead to failure. Chen Ge knew that very well. He grabbed Meng Nan and charged forward. Let go of me. When Chen Ge stood up, the glutton monster had already noticed them. Part of the remaining blood vessel was used to stop Meng Nan. She had exhausted too much energy, and she needed to replenish it. The blood vessel dragged the woman in the bandages to her lips, and the ugly mouth opened. Xu Yin. Meng Nan blocked the blood vessels, and Chen Ge used his trump card. Due to his personality, Meng Nan was not suited for offense, so from the start, Chen Ge's plan was to use him to distract the glutton monster's attention. His real trump card was Xu Yin. Head. Her weakness is her head. Quote. The sound of static echoed in his ears. Blood dripped, and the sad-looking Xu Yin pierced through the intersecting blood vessels like a sharp sword. He leapt high into the air and landed on the glutton monster's shoulder. His 10 fingers pierced into the monster's neck like blades. Looking down, he saw the glutton monster's eyes that were filled with greed and venom, and he exerted force with both of his arms. Is it painful? Blood sprayed, and it looked like it was raining blood inside the hotel. All the blood vessels started to rupture. Fighting 2 red specters at the same time, including Meng Nan and Xu Yin, it would take a total of 4 red specters to kill the glutton monster. Meng Nan, keep an eye on the red specter whose head is separated from her body. Bai Cholan, go and capture the boy in the patient's garb who is about to disappear. The glutton monster was already dead, so Chen Ge started to take over the scene. Half of the headless woman's body had been shattered, and the remaining half of her body and head were covered in wounds. The situation of the red high heels was not looking good either. Her body was wrapped in bandages, and she slowly disappeared. The once pretty shoes on the ground had lost their color. Bang! The glutton monster's large body collapsed to the ground. The red high heels' curse was still burning. Xu Yin evaded the curse and returned to Chen Ge's side. He placed his palm before Chen Ge, and in the center of his palm was a still beating blood-red heart. The glutton monster was large in size, but her heart was very small. It was like a blood-red gem, crystal clear, without any impurities. Such an ugly monster actually has such a pure heart. Chen Ge reached out to grab the glutton monster's heart. He wanted to study what a red specter's heart was, but when his fingertip touched it, a wave of negative emotions rushed into his mind. The blood vessels all over his body bulged, and an indescribable hunger roiled in his mind, making him wish he could eat himself. "I'm so hungry." A hysterical voice finally escaped from Chen Ge. He took several steps back before he came to. Just how many specters and living humans has this thing consumed? Gasping for air, Chen Ge's back was drenched in sweat. He held his hands, and he did not dare touch the red specter's things anymore. The glutton monster's heart is to consume, to feed without limit. Chen Ge understood why Shu Yin did not consume the glutton monster's heart directly. This thing was not something a normal specter could control. When I killed Shang Qing, Shu Yin gave Shang Qing's heart to Bai Cholan. I wonder if Bai Cholan will be affected by Shang Qing. Sensing Chen Ge's gaze, Bai Cholan thought that he had something to do, so he carried the dying boy over. Contrary to Shu Yin, Bai Cholan's body only had his heart dyed red. Bai looks normal. Perhaps because Shang Qing is too weak, it did not affect him. Chen Ge opened the comic and pulled the boy into it. He planned to slowly interrogate the boy about Xinhai Hospital after the trial mission was over. After dealing with the boy, Chen Ge turned to look at the heart in Shu Yin's hand. He could see that Shu Yin was under a lot of pressure just to hold the heart. If he consumed it, there would be problems. Furthermore, Shu Yin did not show any intention of consuming it. He did not want to consume other people's hearts, he wanted to find his own. What should we do? The glutton monster's heart was the most important reward. It contained everything about the glutton monster. With it, he could even cultivate another red specter who could control gluttony. This thing was too precious. Even the Shadow and Dr. Gao would be tempted. With the heart in his hand, Shu Yin will need to divert some of his energy to resist the negative emotions in the heart. If he encounters danger later, it will affect his performance. They were in danger, and Shu Yin was Chen Ge's main fighting force. Letting Shu Yin hold onto the glutton monster's heart was a waste. Other than him, who else could withstand the negative emotions? Chen Ge asked Bai Cholan to give it a try, but the man only lasted for a few minutes before his expression became abnormal. It was obvious that he was affected by the desire for gluttony and was showing signs of losing control. Are we going to give away the good stuff that we've already obtained? The red high heels probably desired the glutton monster's heart a lot. Giving it to her would be a good sign, but Chen Ge felt like that was too much of a waste. The difference in level is too big. A normal specter would have their soul disintegrated after consuming this heart. Only a red specter can withstand the desire for gluttony. Chen Ge looked at the beating heart in Shu Yin's hand. The red heart was buried deep inside the mountain of flesh, untouched by the curse. Shu Yin will only be a burden. Now, I'll have to let Zhang Ya give it a try. He called Shu Yin over to the candle and had Shu Yin place the glutton monster's heart on his own shadow. Ever since he entered Liwan City, Chen Ge's shadow had been changing bit by bit. He only noticed it when he was screaming Zhang Ya's name earlier. He had no idea why Zhang Ya was doing this, but he believed that Zhang Ya would not harm him. The candle's light fell on Chen Ge's body, and strangely enough, the shadow that was projected was the shape of a woman. Chen Ge looked at his own shadow silently, but Shu Yin did not want to get close. After getting Chen Ge's permission, he placed the glutton monster's heart on Chen Ge's shadow. Strangely enough, once the heart that looked like a gem left Shu Yin's hand, it started to beat violently, and soon, the shadow of a woman appeared on top of the heart. Chen Ge had seen this woman in the boss's room before. It was his mother, the real appearance of the gem monster. So, she still has something up her sleeve. Cold sweat broke out on Chen Ge's forehead. If he had ordered his employee to consume this heart, that employee might have become the second glutton monster. The woman's wailing weakened until it melted into drops of blood that fell on Chen Ge's shadow. His shadow was like a bottomless pool. The blood fell on it, creating ripples before disappearing without a trace. When the glutton monster's heart completely melted, Chen Ge's shadow turned darker, and the shape of the woman became clearer. His heart started to race. For some reason, Chen Ge looked at his own shadow, and he felt like there was a woman reaching out to him from the other side of the shadow. If he grabbed the woman's hand, he might be dragged into the shadow, and he would be with her forever. Zhang Ya. A name appeared in his heart, and the shadow's hair floated around him. That should be a response. She seems to have gotten stronger. Chen Ge had been trying to increase the power of all the employees at the haunted house, but after trying for a long time, he realized that the combined power of all the employees under him was still no match for Zhang Ya. To make matters worse, the gap between them was only getting bigger. Perhaps this is what talent looks like. At the underground morgue at Western Zhejiang Medical University, even though Zhang Ya was injured, she had obtained something from Dr. Gao's wife. Then, when she fought the shadow, she had stolen several drops of blood from Dr. Gao, and now she had consumed the glutton monster's heart. Just how powerful had Zhang Ya become? Even Chen Ge could not tell. I'm not someone who likes to rely on others, but in this situation, it looks like I have no choice. The corner of Chen Ge's lips curled upward, and he turned to look at the headless woman in the red high heels. If you don't listen to me, I'll eat both of you. The red high heels collapsed to the ground like a normal shoe. The female ghost had probably exhausted too much energy, and her body was damaged. After all, during the battle with the glutton monster, she had taken on 3/4 of the blood vessels alone. In the end, it was she who had heavily injured the glutton monster, and that had given Chen Ge a chance. The grace of a drop of water should be returned with a spring, so I won't make things difficult for you. After the mission is over, I can bring you back and build a small scenario just for you. Quote. Chen Ge had seen the horror of the red high heels' curse before. He picked up the red high heels with the cloth and placed her on the counter. It's your turn now. You've chased me down the street, and now I need an apology. Chen Ge had Xu Yin, Bai Cholan, and Meng Nan keep an eye on the headless woman before he dared approach her. The headless woman seemed to be prejudiced against men. She did not even look at Chen Ge's group. It's fine if you don't want to communicate with men. I have female ghosts as well. Chen Ge summoned Duan Yu. They communicated for a long time before Duan Yu ran over to give Chen Ge a reply. The headless woman was in bad shape. She had lost half of her body, and her head was heavily injured. She was having a hard time keeping her body from dispersing, much less continuing to fight. Even though you've chased me for a long time, I'll forgive you. After we leave this place, I'll find a place for you to rest in peace. Chen Ge used the comic to pull the headless woman away. Hey, I'm thinking that your place is limited, so why don't you give the place that I normally stay to the female ghost? Meng Nan followed behind Chen Ge like an adult. I haven't been back for a long time. Something might happen to the third sick hall. If the door goes out of control, the consequences will be unimaginable. I promise you, when the sun rises, I'll send you back to the third sick hall immediately. Chen Ge squatted down and extended his hand seriously. Pinky promise. F*CK, you're too childish. Even though he sounded unwilling, Meng Nan still extended his hand. How did you suddenly come around? You're so straightforward that I don't feel safe. Quote. It's indeed scary when the door goes out of control, so I'd better send you back as soon as possible. Chen Ge stood up. He He was telling the truth. Yes, I told you that, but you refused to believe me. If something really happens, it'll be too late to fix it. After getting Chen Ge's promise, Meng Nan finally sighed in relief. Since you're so sincere, I'll help you again. By the way, where are we now? How come there are so many red specters in a small hotel? Quote. We're behind a door that has gone out of control. This is eastern Zhejiang's Liwan City. Chen Ge said it naturally. He paused for a long time, and when he realized Meng Nan did not reply, he turned to look at him. What's wrong? Meng Nan, who was only slightly taller than Chen Ge's knee, stood where he was like he could not believe his ears. We're behind a door that has gone out of control. Yes. Behind a door. Yes. After the short conversation, Meng Nan sat on the ground. He looked at Chen Ge dumbly. He did not say anything, like his brain had gone haywire. What's wrong? Chen Ge quickly squatted down. He was concerned about Meng Nan. It's nothing. Meng Nan waved his hands. I just want to sit on the ground for a while. I'm afraid I won't get the chance later. There's no need to be so pessimistic. Don't be afraid, you still have me. It's because you're here that I'm afraid. If not for the fact that I can't reach you, I would have jumped up and strangled you twice already. Have you lost your mind? It's fine if you run to the door. But you run to the door that has gone out of control. I'm curious how you managed to find such a dangerous place. Can't you just stay alive? Is it so hard to stay alive? Meng Nan almost cried as he complained. The series of words was said in just a few seconds. I understand, I understand. Don't worry, if we can get out of here alive, I will definitely send you home. Chen Ge quickly comforted Meng Nan. After a long time, seeing that the man had calmed down, Chen Ge tried to ask, is it really that dangerous behind a door that has gone out of control? Of course. Think about it, behind a single door, it's just an enclosed building. The number of red specters and monsters that you have to deal with is limited, but it's different for a door that has gone out of control. It will drag all the buildings in that area into it, and no one can tell how many monsters and red specters are hiding there. Meng Nan shrugged and looked troubled. I'm not good at fighting, and I was tricked by the Society of Strange Tales. My power is greatly reduced, so I need to fix the windows at the third sick hall as soon as possible. If something else enters the third sick hall, then my home will be ruined. Isn't that better? I can prepare a new home for you. Chen Ge realized that Meng Nan was about to explode again, so he stopped him immediately. You have a point. After we leave Liwan City, I will send you home immediately. After putting Meng Nan away with the comic, Chen Ge summoned all of his employees to clean up the hotel. The red high heels' curse was scarier and more powerful than he expected. The blood vessels and the glutton monster's body turned into dust, and only 4 chains were left on the ground. There are still many questions about the glutton monster. Chen Ge entered room 1 and released the old man. See the chains on the ground. Did you lock the woman behind the fridge there? Quote. The old man had a rough idea of what had happened at the hotel, so he confessed everything to Chen Ge. The family of 3 did not live in Liwan City initially. They ran an apartment at another part of eastern Zhejiang. They lived upstairs, and the hotel was downstairs. Later, the old man's wife came down with a strange illness. No matter how much she ate, she could not fill her stomach. Once she stopped eating, she would panic and feel uncomfortable all over. They visited many doctors, but it was useless. The wife's condition worsened, and she would bite when she was hungry. They spent all their money, and one night, the wife and the old man, who had just returned from the hospital, took the last bus on Route 104 and arrived at Liwan City. The old man was more cowardly, so he did not get off the bus. His wife was led into the ghost apartment by a blurry shadow. When she came out, his wife's condition was much better. He was overjoyed, thinking that he had met his savior, but that was just the beginning of the real nightmare. The wife would always go out at night, and the old man found out later that his wife was just looking for food to eat. To prevent the police from discovering them, the family of 3 moved to Liwan City, and what happened after that was similar to what was recorded in Xiaobu's game. When she was alive, it was me who locked her up. If I didn't lock her up, she would have eaten herself. But after she died, it was a shadow that locked her up. The old man looked at Chen Ge and did not dare continue. The shadow's silhouette is very similar to yours. He would periodically bring something to feed my wife until she became like that. Similar silhouette again. Chen Ge nodded. He understood everything now. The glutton monster could be said to be the shadow's creation, and the purpose of her existence was to guard the center of Liwan City. I've explored most of the places mentioned by the black phone. It's time to go to Fan Kong's residential area. Chen Ge's goal had been achieved. He summoned all his employees back and used the rope to tie the old man back to room 1. You can leave now. Chen Ge walked out from room 1 and prepared to go upstairs to find the other 3 passengers, but at that moment, an accident happened. The door of the hotel was suddenly pushed open, and 2 men walked in one after the other. Do not open your mouth and do not make any unnecessary movements. Do you understand? Quote. Yes, I understand everything, but the problem is that you've captured the wrong person. Trust me, he has already left my body. Quote. Hearing this familiar voice, Chen Ge raised his head subconsciously. When he saw the 2 at the door, his pupils narrowed instantly. Li Jung, Jia Ming, why are the 2 of them here? Quote. When Chen Ge saw Li Jung and Jia Ming, the 2 at the door saw him as well. Chen Ge, Li Jung and Jia Ming said at the same time. Neither of them expected to run into Chen Ge there. Why are you here? Li Jung placed one of his hands behind Jia Ming. Even though he was shocked, the hand did not move. Don't go over there, he might not be Chen Ge, Jia Ming reminded him softly. Jia Ming reminded him softly. He looked a little scared. Have you forgotten what I told you before? The shadow looks just like Chen Ge. Quote. From the perspective of a third party, Jia Ming did have a point. A living person suddenly appearing inside a hotel shrouded in blood fog in the middle of the night, there had to be something wrong. You're asking me, but I should be asking you the same question. Chen Ge did not dare get too close to Li Jung and Jia Ming. Before he entered Liwan City, Li Jung had sent him a message, telling him that Jia Ming had escaped, and they were currently searching for Jia Ming in the city. However, in just 3 hours, Li Jung and Jia Ming had appeared together in Liwan City. No matter how he thought about it, this was very strange. Li Jung's hand had been hiding behind Jia Ming. He was probably pointing the gun at Jia Ming to prevent him from doing something irrational. The man had a gun, so Chen Ge did not dare act recklessly. A gun was useless against a baleful specter, but it posed a great threat to him. In any case, let's all calm down first. Staying at the hotel would only waste precious time, so Chen Ge decided to reveal his identity first. He took out his phone and showed Li Jung all his call history. Inspector Li, I'm Chen Ge, that is undeniable. The reason I'm here is because I received a distress call. Chen Ge pointed at his call history with Fan Kong. This man once came to visit my haunted house. He was not in a normal state, and he said many strange things to me. Out of curiosity, I exchanged contact information with him, but to my surprise, he disappeared tonight. I was the last person he contacted. To get to the bottom of this, I rushed over to Liwan City overnight. Quote. Li Jung asked Chen Ge a few more questions. Seeing that Chen Ge had answered all of them correctly, he relaxed slightly. Jia Ming escaped from the hospital. We searched the streets, and we confirmed that he was heading toward eastern Zhejiang. Initially, we thought he was planning to escape into the mountains. After expanding the search area, I discovered something very strange through the surveillance. When he passed a junction, Jia Ming covered his face. Even though he was still wearing his original clothes, the way he walked became unnatural. I've checked the surveillance footage multiple times, and I think Jia Ming might have found someone to take his place at that junction. Let the team search according to the original plan. I'll head toward the fork in the road myself. The storm was too heavy. It made the search very difficult, but hard work pays off. In the end, I found him in the back alley of the street. I chased him all the way to Liwan City before I managed to capture him. After hearing what Li Jung had to say, Jia Ming quickly waved his hands. Everything I did was forced by the shadow. If I didn't follow his orders, he would have had 100 different ways to kill me. Forced. How come it feels like you purposely lured me to this godforsaken place? What are you planning with the shadow? Be honest, you've already lost your chance. Li Jung had entered Liwan City because he was chasing after Jia Ming. From Chen Ge's perspective, this reason was acceptable, but it was a bit far-fetched. For some reason, he felt like Li Jung and Jia Ming were acting strangely, but he could not pinpoint what was so strange about them. Inspector Li, this place is very dangerous. Come in first, don't stay at the entrance for too long. Chen Ge pressed the play button on the recorder and walked toward the hotel entrance. Did you run into anything scary on the way here? This place is indeed very strange. It's raining outside, but the ground inside the small town is not wet. I believe it has something to do with the blood fog. Li Jung did not answer the question. He grabbed Jia Ming and walked into the hotel. Chen Ge knew very well how scary Liwan City was. This place was filled with baleful specters and murderers. If Inspector Li had a way to deal with them, how was a normal person like him supposed to deal with them? Based on Li Jung and Jia Ming's expressions, they were merely nervous, but there was no fear in their eyes. Could it be that the shadow is among them? That's why the ghosts in Liwan City are avoiding them. One was a police officer, and the other was a criminal. Chen Ge had no idea who the shadow was. I mustn't panic. Both of them might be real people, and the shadow is hiding in a third place. Ever since he obtained the black phone, the shadow was the most difficult opponent that Chen Ge had encountered. He had a feeling that the shadow had summoned both Li Jung and Jia Ming at the same time to distract him. Chen Ge was wary of Li Jung and Jia Ming, and neither of them completely trusted Chen Ge. They already knew that the shadow had the ability to change and imitate others. Perhaps from their perspective, the Chen Ge before them was most likely the shadow in disguise. Sit anywhere you want. Wait here for a moment, I have a few friends upstairs. Chen Ge walked up to the second floor. He turned around and heard Jia Ming whisper to Li Jung, I've told you everything about the shadow. Now that you've seen him with your own eyes, it proves that I'm not lying. The shadow is Chen Ge. Leave now, or else it'll be too late. He'll kill us to silence us. Quote. You spent so much effort to bring me here just to show me this. Li Jung's tone was cold and serious. Since you have a way to lure me here, then you must have a way to trick Chen Ge here as well. Now, it's hard to tell whether he's the shadow or not. It's already so obvious, but you still don't believe me. Jia Ming's voice rose. Think about the things that the man has done. Do you think that's something a normal person would do? He's just using you to cover up his sin. Quote. Cover up his sin. Do you know what the definition of sin is? Li Jung pressed Jia Ming to the side of the table. Be honest. Don't say things that you shouldn't say, and don't do things that you shouldn't do. I have my own judgment. Li Jung and Jia Ming conversed softly. Chen Ge slowly walked away. When he reached the second floor, someone knocked on the door of the hotel again. Is anyone there? A young man carrying a black backpack stood at the door. He looked rather frail. I wish to stay here for the night. He seemed to be in puberty. His voice was rather awkward, but other than that, he looked normal. He looked like a high school student who had run away from home. Pushing on his glasses, he avoided Li Jung and Jia Ming and carefully walked to the front of the counter. "Is anyone there? I'd like to stay." Quote. Chen Ge stood on the second floor, and he saw everything. "This child looks the same as the one I saw on the high school student's phone. He should be either Bai Wen or Bai Yi." When he took the bus on Route 104, Chen Ge had run into a high school student with a wooden face. He had boarded the bus to look for his missing classmate, and he had shown Chen Ge his classmate's picture. Coincidentally, Chen Ge had heard Jiu Feiyu describe the missing person on the phone. To prevent any accidents from happening to the high school student, Chen Ge had chased him off the bus and promised to help him find out the truth if it was within his power. "When I was playing Xiao Bu's game, I did see a high school student inside the hotel scenario." Chen Ge gripped the handrail, and his eyes wandered between the high school student and Li Jung. In Xiao Bu's game, there are 4 customers inside the hotel: the woman, the high school student, the police officer, and Xiao Bu. Now that the police officer and the high school student have appeared, shouldn't it be the woman's turn to appear next? The world behind the door was woven from the door pusher's memory. Xiao Bu's game recorded Xiao Bu's own experiences, and now that the door had gone out of control, all the nightmares that she had experienced had become reality. Why would Xiao Bu want people to play this game? Just to prove that she's innocent? To resonate with others? Is this her tool to escape? Or is there a key hidden in the game that can free her? Quote. With Chen Ge's help, Fan Kong had cleared the game, but that was when the change happened. The shadow had targeted his family. Now that Fan Kong had disappeared, his older brother, Fan Dade, might have been replaced by the shadow. The shadow should know about the existence of Xiao Bu's game, but why didn't he stop it? Could it be that there is something inside Xiao Bu's game that he needs? Quote. The door to Li Wan City was pushed open by Xiao Bu, so to gain full control of this door, Xiao Bu's full cooperation is needed. Now that I think about it, the shadow is casting a long line to catch a big fish. The most important thing now is to find Fan Kong. He is the only person at the scene. Quote. Chen Ge had taken over the hotel, and he had summoned the glutton monster away. This place was just an empty shell, so there was no reason for him to stay. Pushing open the guest room door, Scissors and the drunkard huddled next to the window with a rope that they had made. They had tied the doctor up so that if there was a problem, they could send the doctor out first. What's the situation outside? Earlier, I felt like the whole building was shaking like there was an earthquake. When the drunkard saw Chen Ge walk in, he leaned toward Chen Ge nervously. The boss and the chef were killed by the headless woman, and then they died together with a baleful specter inside the hotel kitchen. The ghost inside the hotel is dead as well. The drunkard gave a long sigh. Then, we can rest here peacefully. After the sun rises and the blood fog disperses, we should be able to leave this place easily. This hotel is not safe. Without a baleful specter to guard it, more people and monsters will come. Chen Ge walked to the doctor's side and lowered his head to inspect his body. Can you still walk? The veins on the doctor's neck were popping. He tried his best to move his head slightly. I'm much more awake now, but I can't use my limbs, and there's one more thing. Scissors seemed to know what the doctor was going to say. He reached out to pull up the cloth on the doctor's pants. There was a patch of skin on the outside of the doctor's thigh that had turned gray. When I first came to Li Wan City, I heard people say that if you stay too long on the other side of the door, gray spots will grow on your body. Once that happens, it'll be impossible for you to leave. The doctor sounded pessimistic. I won't be able to leave this place. Your feet are on your body. If you want to leave, no one will be able to stop you. Chen Ge's original plan was to drive the bus on Route 104 directly to Fan Kong's residential area and use the red high heels and the smiling man to force their way through the shadow's trap, but the situation had obviously changed. The blood fog covered Li Wan City, and the door that had gone out of control had been activated before they arrived. Chen Ge had no choice but to change his plan. He would make use of the Xiao Bu game to first consume the troublesome ghosts in Liwan City and use the enemies to strengthen himself. Chen Ge had visited the few locations that were mentioned on the black phone, and he felt like that was enough. There are other customers coming in from downstairs. They might be the original residents of this place, or they might be ghosts in disguise. Be careful later. There's nothing wrong with being careful. After giving a few more orders, Chen Ge had the drunkard carry the doctor, and the group left the room. When they returned to the first floor, Chen Ge realized that other than the police officer, Jia Ming, and the high schooler, there was another woman in the hotel. She had a sexy body and a sweet face. She was dressed conservatively in a long shirt with long sleeves and gloves that covered almost all of her skin. "Where's the boss? Give me a single room." The woman dragged a large suitcase. She ignored everyone else and walked toward the kitchen with a smile. "This time, I've brought what you want." She walked past Chen Ge's group. There was no scent of perfume on the woman. Instead, there was a light stench of decay. The boss has gone out to deal with something. He's not in the kitchen. Chen Ge reached out to stop the woman. "Who are you? Are you familiar with the boss?" The woman's small nose leaned close to Chen Ge like she had smelled something special on Chen Ge. When the woman got close, Chen Ge saw the woman's collar. There was a complicated scar around her neck that looked like a tattoo. It was as if the skin under her shirt was sewn together. "I'm not familiar with the boss, but I hope you'll behave yourself. I'm in charge of this place now." Chen Ge replied politely. Actually, if not for the fact that there were other people around them, he would have summoned his employees to restrain the woman and start to interrogate her for information about Liwan City. The woman stood on her tiptoes to look at the kitchen. Chen Ge had his employees clean up the place, but she could still see some problems. "It doesn't matter who's in charge. I just want to know if you're still doing business here." The woman dragged the suitcase closer to her. Recently, the number of people coming in from outside has been decreasing. "It wasn't easy for me to get this thing." Chen Ge had a general idea of what was inside the suitcase. "You're still doing business. Leave the suitcase behind, and you can stay here anytime you want." "Thank you. Can I go to the kitchen to make something to eat? This time, the blood fog is much thicker than before. I'm quite hungry." The woman came up with many reasons to go to the kitchen. "Find a place to sit. The food will be here soon." Chen Ge waved at the drunkard. He had him and Scissors go to the kitchen to see if there was anything to eat. After the group entered the kitchen, the restaurant door was pushed open again, and a man with a strange smile on his face walked in. There was a blood stain on his shirt like he was injured. After entering the restaurant, he did not say anything and found a corner to sit down. Not long after that, the sound of dripping came from the restaurant door, and the smile on the smiling man's face froze. Several seconds later, a woman in a red raincoat entered the restaurant with her head lowered.